Okay, well, in the interest of time and letting things happen, I just want to say hello. My name is Jade Harvey Beryl, and I'm here on behalf of Canada's non-profit outdoor learning store. And on behalf of us and our partners, I'd like to warmly welcome you to this third session in our Canadian Outdoor Learning Spring Virtual Workshop Series. I'm very grateful to join you this evening from the homelands and traditional unceded territories of the Snayaks, the Silk, the Secwepemc, and the Ktunaxa people.
Hi everyone, my name is Farheen, and I want to welcome you all on behalf of Take Me Outside, who's one of the 20 learning partners, outdoor learning partners that are partnering to provide you this awesome series. I'm located in the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples, to whom I'm very grateful for their stewardship and knowledge for this land that I call my home, Toronto. And that's it. Welcome.
So we do know that in the context of outdoor learning, it is fundamental to develop our understanding of Indigenous knowledge and perspectives and really take the time to nurture those relationships with the people that have called this place home for millennia. So we'd encourage you to take a moment to consider what you can do to deepen your understanding in your own lives. And at this moment, we invite you to share in the chat what Indigenous territories you are joining us from this evening. So let's have a waterfall of Indigenous gratitude for the people that have been here before us and continue.
And we also acknowledge that this is a very challenging time for all of us. However, we know that outdoor learning and connecting with nature is a great way for us to foster better health for both us and the planet, which is why we're very excited to offer this session to you today.
So to get a better sense of who is in the room, thank you so much for sharing in the chat there what's been going on and where you are. In that regard, we've got a couple of polls for you. So we're trying to figure out who's joining us and where. So poll one, I'm going to launch, and it's just, where are you joining us from? So going to give you about 10 seconds to vote. Are you a British Columbian, a Burton, out in the prairie lands, or out east on the coast? Okay, look at that, neck and neck. BC and Ontario are sharing. As you can tell, I've got a British Columbian accent, so very standard. Okay, I'm going to give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Indeed, so bang on, 36% each for Ontario and BC, and then a nice smattering from across the country, apart from Manitoba. Next time we'll get a Manitoban. And the next poll I'd like to share with you is, what type of educator are you? So there's a few options here. Do you work in water education? Are you early years, elementary, secondary, post? Are you somebody that, like me, who is an informal educator who goes into the schools or works with public groups? Are you a governance specialist? Share with us your things. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds. Close to 90% of people have voted. Click those buttons. Give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The poll is ended and the results are in. Okay, so the largest representation is elementary school teachers. Okay, which I think this workshop will be particularly helpful for. And then some educators across the board. So that's pretty fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are joining us, welcome. There's a little post there saying you can type your questions in the chat, and please keep your mic on mute, and we're going to send out a link to the recorded version later. So please just relax, enjoy, and absorb the information as it comes. If anyone's new to Zoom and has never done this before, again, the chat, you'll find that bar down at the bottom and you can ask questions. It's being moderated, so anything you put in there will find its way to the presenters. We've asked about being mute, and look, if you we would love to see your smiling face and see that engagement. It does often make it easier for the presenters to stay focused, but if for any reason you're struggling with bandwidth or anything, of course you can leave your video off. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now, and let's get on with it.
So the Canadian Outdoor Learning Spring Virtual Workshop is brought to you by 20 partners from across the country, all of whom offer excellent outdoor and environmental education resources, programs, and support. So Jade and I are going to quickly walk you through each of these. And Duncan from the Canadian nonprofit Outdoor Learning Store, he will pop the links in the chat so you can check them out if you like.
So take me outside. Sorry, that's you, Fahim. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, Take Me Outside is the first feature. Take Me Outside raises awareness and facilitates action on nature connection and outdoor learning in schools across Canada through various initiatives. We offer Take Me Outside's weatherproof journals on the Outdoor Learning Store.
The Pacific Foundation for Understanding of Nature supports experiential, place-conscious and nature-based environmental learning, leadership and cultural programs. They are offering a $1,000 gift card for Canada's nonprofit Outdoor Learning Store as a draw prize for educators who sign up for their 21-22 Take Me Outside for Learning School Year Challenge.
ECOM is Canada's national bilingual and charitable umbrella network for environmental learning. They host national conferences and awards.
Our next partner is Green Teacher, and they're pleased to offer discounted bulk subscriptions to our quarterly magazine for schools, school boards, faculties, and nonprofits. You can subscribe to our new environmental education podcast that's making waves in the community. It's called Earthy Chats. You can find it on Spotify or on Podbean. And soon to be an Apple, and several of their educator resources available are available in our outdoor learning store.
Green Learning is our next feature. They offer free online education programs about energy, climate change, and green economy that engages and empowers students to create positive change in our evolving world.
Natural Curiosity, who will feature in one of our later workshops in this series, offer a framework for environmental inquiry, combining inquiry-based learning, experiential learning, integrated learning, and stewardship. You can buy their resource book in the store. It's available in French and English.
Water Rangers, the feature of today's workshop, supports the collection of data on their free open data platform, all with the goal of providing communities with the tools they need to take care of our lakes, rivers, and oceans. Their water testing kits are available on the Outdoor Learning Store, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that today when we hear from Laura and Luke.
CBEAN, the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network, is the regional network for over 500 educators in Southeast British Columbia. We host the nonprofit Outdoor Learning Store and provide a variety of resources, pro-D development opportunities, and youth programs across the Columbia Basin.
BC's Environmental Educators Provincial Specialist Association provides networking, curriculum support, and leadership for teachers.
Wildsight. They provide programs to get kids outside in order to instill a sense of connection and place and to give those youth the tools to face the challenges of sustainability with knowledge and inspiration.
And the Global Environmental and Outdoor Education Council is your resource for teaching in the area of global environmental and outdoor education. They offer conferences, workshops, teaching ideas, and information.
Sask Outdoors are our next partner, and they encourage educators and people who participate in outdoor rec to practice and teach environmental responsibility. They offer a variety of workshops, events, and trainings.
The Alberta Council for Environmental Education works collaboratively to advance environmental education in Alberta. so today's students have the knowledge and skills to build a sustainable future.
Stoked on science, develop and deliver high quality, safe, affordable programs that connect young people with the world around them. And that's me as well.
Get Outside and Play offers resources, workshops, and consulting services to support nature connection and outdoor experiences for young children.
The Ontario Society for Environmental Education, or OC, is for all educators who are interested in integrating environmental topics into their teaching practice. They offer resources, news, information, and their awesome EcoLinks conference is coming up May 7th and 8th. Registration is on a sliding scale from 0 to 40. It looks fantastic. The array of workshops and speakers they have, you should sign up.
C2C is a Made in BC collaborative of partners committed to providing place-based educational leadership and support through a suite of strategies, events, and activities.
The Kootenay Boundary Environmental Education is Canada's first and only partnership of school superintendents who have banded together to support outdoor and environmental learning. They've got an inspiration handbook, videos, and an annual Take Me Outside for Learning school year challenge.
Learning for a Sustainable Future, or LSF, works to integrate the concepts and principles of sustainable development into education policy, school curriculum, teacher education, and lifelong learning across Canada.
Imagine founded by the amazing Gillian Judson, who we had in our workshop series earlier, is designed to support and enable imagination-focused teaching in all contexts, from formal to alternative, primary school up to higher education. 2 of the teacher resources are available in the Outdoor Learning Store, a walking curriculum and engaging imagination in ecological education. Ooh. It's not too late to register as well for their walking curriculum challenge. This 30-day challenge encourages educators to take their learning outside for part of the day, rain, snow, shine, hail, for 30 days. There's plenty of prizes and resources are available for registrants. Thank you so much for bearing with us. As you can see, we've got lots of partners, but that's because we're working hard to network and provide you with the best resources available. And so at this moment, we'd actually love to introduce you to our presenter. So Laura Gilbert, who's the Community Research Coordinator at Water Rangers and a PhD candidate at McGill. She manages different research projects for Water Rangers and studies how community-based water monitoring helps people feel more connected to the water bodies they test. Welcome, Laura. And joining her is Luke Williamson, who's the Education and Store Coordinator at Water Rangers, currently studying for his Bachelor of Education at the University of Ottawa. In the junior classroom, Luke is committed to equity, relationship building and innovation, and he'll be your point of contact when you buy test kits for your classroom.
Everybody.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Laura and Luke and just say thank you for joining us.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. So hi, everyone. I'm Laura from Water Rangers, like Jade told you, and I'll be starting off the presentation and then Luke will follow after with some more explanation. I just want to adjust my view a little bit so I can see everyone a little better. Perfect. So today I'll be talking to you about our main test kit that we have, the Freshwater Explorer test kit. So I did see from the poll that we have a lot of educators that work with younger students. So this one is great for older students a little bit. So we usually say age 10 and above. So I'll go through all of the tools in there and I'll point out which ones are really great for younger students. And then Luke at the end will talk to you about different options of test kits that you can get for those younger kids, but they'll have the same tools as what I'm talking to you about. As I'm presenting, please don't be shy to put any questions that you have in the chat box. Luke's going to try to answer as much as he can. And if I speak too quickly, if I don't, if you have some more questions about what I'm presenting, Luke, feel free to interrupt me to let me know that somebody needs further explanation, just to make sure that everyone understands properly what we're doing. So I did see quickly in there, somebody asked about if it's bilingual. So yeah, everything is available in French and English, and we're also available to do some webinars in French or English in your classroom. Keep in mind that we are located in Ontario, mostly Eastern Ontario, and I myself am in Montreal. So we can do some in-person presentations when COVID allows it, of course, but just keep in mind the geography of it, but that's always something that we're excited to do. So let me walk you through this test kit. So it's lunchbox size, and the first thing to note is when you open the pocket in the front, we include a field guide. So I have both the French and the English one. And we want everything to be super accessible to everyone. So we explain everything that's in here in grade 5 reading level or lower. And when you open it up, you'll see that there's information about everything in here, from air temperature that you'll be able to measure to conductivity. So just for example, you would have some normal values in here. So you could explain things further to students. And there's also links to different videos, training videos that we have on our website for absolutely everything. So we can always give a webinar, or you can train yourself on our website as to how to use this. It's not a problem. In the front pocket, you'll also see that we include a notepad with waterproof paper where you can write everything down. So as was mentioned in the introduction, Water Rangers is more than just these test kits. We're also an online data platform, and we have a phone application. And we do encourage people to share their data with everyone by putting it on the platform or using our app. But we understand that for educators especially, that's not necessarily something that you can include with your classroom, and you want it more for like use in the classroom sometimes. So that's why we have these little notepads, which are really great, where you can write everything down. And then later on, if you do want to add it online to share with everyone, then you can. We do believe in open data, and we do share it with other platforms so that it gets to decision makers, so that the data that is collected can help make better decisions about water bodies. So we also include some little goodies for your class. So we have some stickers and some badges that you can distribute as prizes to the students that participate, and also some postcards with some more information. So if you're ever outside testing with your class and somebody's asking you some questions, you can give them a little bit of information as to what you're doing and why you're doing it. I will show you the different components of the test kit. I'm not going to spend too much time on the science because I think everyone here knows the science pretty well, so I'll go over that quickly, but there's definitely more information on the website, like I said, and in that guide in the front. And we can also answer some questions after. So you open it up and everything's pretty packed nicely. It's like a little hard to tell, but everything fits in there. Everything has a spot. The first thing that we usually tell people to go measure is air temperature. So we have just this super easy to use thermometer that can easily be hung in a tree. So this thermometer is in all of the test kits that we have. And you just want to hang it about 1.5 meters from the ground in the shade. And you can leave it there for about 5 minutes before you take the reading. So we usually say hang it in the tree or somewhere else, go do all of your tests, and then come back and take the air temperature after. I will admit, I often forget my thermometer in the tree, and then I have to like rush back and get it. So definitely assign a student to be in charge of the thermometer so that doesn't happen to you in your classroom. Another tool we have in here is a conductivity meter. So this one is also great for all age groups. It's super easy to use. So it's also COVID friendly. So this one's easy to disinfect and pass around. This one will give you water and air temperature. Sorry, what am I saying? Not air, sorry, we just went through that. Water temperature and conductivity, which is just water's ability to conduct electricity. So it's going to be affected by different salts and different dissolved minerals in the water. Let me just show you how it works quickly. So it's super easy. You just press the first button. It's going to cycle through some numbers. It's going to give you the value of conductivity in microsiemens. So that's the number on top. I'm not in water right now, so it's obviously not giving me a real value. You just take off the cap. And I actually have 2 water samples that I took here to give you a little example. So the first one is I just took some demineralized water because there's no minerals in there. My conductivity should be really, really low. So just to give you an example, I would just put it in there and right, you can see it's at 3.5, I have to turn it around, sorry, 2 and 20 degrees. So that's because it's going down to 1, because this is demineralized water. So you're expecting a conductivity of almost 0 in this case, right? And let me put this away without making a mess. I like to bring a little towel just to wipe it clean after. And Then you would want to take a river sample. So we include in this test kit and our compact test kit, this reacher stick, which is really a selfie stick, but one of our users in Nova Scotia was having trouble reaching the water. So she came up with this brilliant idea of how to use it to be able to take a sample. So we include this little handy sample cup. You would just open it up, attach your reacher stick, and open it up, and you can now easily go reach the water without getting yourself wet. And since we also recommend to rinse your cup 3 times and take your sample 10 centimeters below the surface of the water, this is going to allow you to do this super easily. So after I would have taken my water sample, which I live a little far from the water, so I went to get one earlier today. So it's been sitting around a little bit, but I will do this right now for you. So I'm just going to pour it in here. You don't need that much water. And let's see what connectivity I get here. So we had 1, and now you can see I have about 308. I just have to wait for that little US, so the microsiemens symbol, to stabilize. And that's going to give me my value. So it's stabilized there at 310 with a temperature of 18.2311 because I moved it around. So that would be my conductivity. So you can see a difference there. And I know that I showed Luke how to do this when he started a few weeks ago, and he was really surprised that here in Montreal the conductivity is so high, because where he is close to Ottawa, the conductivity is very low. What were you telling me it was, Luke? Like around like 50, 100? Oh, you're muted, but
it was around 80 on the lake I was testing.
Yeah, so it's much lower. So the conductivity will change based on the bedrock and the different conditions around. And this is also a fun experiment to do if you know that a lot of the kids in your class, their water at home comes from a well, because that's gonna, usually well water has really high conductivity because it is surrounded, it's underground and it's surrounded by all of this bedrock, and the minerals seep in slowly, so it's nice to do comparison if you can bring, if the kids can bring some water from home that's come from a well and others that haven't, and you can talk about that a lot. It's quite nice. So I just clean my conductivity meter. I close it by pressing the first button, and I'm done with that. So this one is super easy to do, and you can really talk about it for a really long time. And it's really nice to do experiments with this one, even in the winter. You can put in some little additives in the water and do some different experiments. So just with a little bit of salt, there's a lot to be said about road salts using this instrument as well, which is really nice. In the winter, I love taking some snow samples from outside, and you know, the clean snow versus the dirty snow, and you can actually do some great tests. I will say this is meant for fresh water, so if you take some dirty snow samples, just watch out, because sometimes the snow is like so dirty that the conductivity is really high, and you will just get an error message, which has happened to me a few times when I've been trying to measure the conductivity in there. The next thing you'll find in your kit is a tool that isn't used that much in classrooms. It's only available in this large test kit. And this is a Secchi disc, which we use to measure clarity and water depth. This is actually pretty cool because it's a tool that's literally centuries old. So it has been used for centuries to measure clarity. And it's so good and accurate that a lot of the times that's what even conservation authorities or different lake management groups still use to measure clarity. Just grab a sip of water. So to use this, you would want to be where there is deeper water. So that's why it's not necessarily always super useful when you're going out with a school group. But if you have access to a dock, you could go to the end of the dock and try this out easily and safely with your class. But normally it would be done more from a canoe, a kayak, or from a boat. So let me just show it to you. We use the super easy to use wheel, and it's got all the measurements. So I would just slide my hand through here, and I would just slowly let it fall in the water. And you want to make sure that no one's wearing sunglasses when you do this, because it's going to affect how you see the colors. And it's got a weight on there, so I'm holding it right now because otherwise it would just like fall to the ground really loudly. So I slowly let it slide, and when I can't see the disc anymore, and that means that the disc completely disappears. I'm gonna bring it up and down just a little bit to find that exact point where it disappears. And then I would take my measurement right at the top of the water body. So let's say my water body starts here. Right here, I would just pinch my measuring tape and take my measurements. So for here, I would have a clarity of 30. This is obviously just an example, but in lakes that are pretty clear, like that one that Luke was just talking about, that has a conductivity of about 80, I've tested the clarity in that lake, and it was about 7 meters. So this can go pretty deep. And if you ever can see all the way to the bottom, then you can just measure the depth. And this goes up to 20 meters, so it's pretty deep. But as fun of a tool as it is not the most useful for classrooms unless you're going out in an area that has deep water, or you're with older students as well. That's a little safer for them to do. The next tool we have in here are these little test strips, which are included in every single test kit we have, and these are great for every age group. So these, like the name says, are actually pool test strips. So just to let you know, we tested out about 15 different types of these test strips, and we found that these were the most accurate. We did some lab tests, and these were the best ones. So that's why we're using them. And if you look at the back, you have the little comparison chart, and they're going to measure for different things. So they're going to measure for chlorine, pH, then we have alkalinity and hardness. So obviously, since this is meant for pools, you have chlorine there, but in natural water bodies, you wouldn't necessarily find chlorine, but we still get people to test for it and write down their results, because it does happen if you're close to a water treatment plant or some sort of factory that you will find chlorine. And I always like to tell the story of my brother-in-law that tests a little stream behind his place in Etobicoke, which is close to Toronto. And I assume that it's because some people empty out their pool water in the stream, but he literally gets values that read ideal for a pool when he tests the water, which is a little scary. And then the different values you have there are pH, alkalinity, and hardness. So pH is a fun one to do with the kids of all ages. I find it's quite easy for them to relate to pH, and I often like to relate it to foods that they might know. So like lemons or watermelons, and even soap for their hands. And that's also a fun experiment you can do in the classroom. So to add a little bit of something to the water and see how it affects the pH. And alkalinity is related to changes in pH, so it acts as a shield. So it tells you how easily water sorry, I'm not saying this right, how much it will be affected by changes that can impact the pH, if that makes sense. And hardness is very related to conductivity. So it's about different dissolved minerals and metals in the water. So I can show you how to do this one. Super easy as well. So you would just shake out one test strip. You got to do it with really dry hands because you don't want to get any water in there because you're going to ruin all of your test strips if you get some water in there. So it has the 4 little pads with the 4 different parameters that we're going to test. And you just dip it in the water, 1, 2, you take it out, and then we wait 20 seconds. And then you just really easily compare it to the back. So you start at the low end and you slowly move it up, and we do 1 parameter at a time. So chlorine's not the best example because there's no chlorine in my water, so it's just going to be 0. But for pH, I would just slowly bring it up in there until I find the value that corresponds to it. Let me just look at it a little better. So in my case, that would be at about a 7.2. But if you ever fall between 2 values, like let's say between a 6.8 and a 7 on the scale, 6.8 and 7.2, then you would write the average, which is 7 on your notepad. So you can definitely take the average between 2 values. And just to show you quickly, for alkalinity, I would have a value of about 120 on here. And then for hardness, I'm right between the 0 and the 100. Somewhere around the purple and the more blue color. So I would write 50 on my sheet. So these are color tests, and we all see colors differently, and kids might interpret these things differently. So we always encourage them to do the readings in a team of 2 and try to reason with each other. But since we just see the colors differently and that happens, then a lot of the times we say, just take the average between the two values that you see. Like oftentimes they'll just see one next to the other. So it doesn't matter too much if it's a little bit different from one person to the other. So that's it for my test strip. We do include in your test kit these little trash bins for your test strips. So you could just put it in there, and you will find in the front pocket of your envelope, of your test kit, an envelope with our address, and you can return these at the end of the season to us, and we recycle them for you. So the last test I have in here is, in my opinion, the most fun, but this one is for slightly older students. So it is for dissolved oxygen. So this is one that you could do as a demo for younger students if you wanted to. And there's a couple little things they can help you out with when they do this test with you as well. So when you open it up, this is what it looks like. It's another one of these color tests. So at the top here, you have the chart. So we're going to measure dissolved oxygen in milligrams per liter. And at the bottom, you'll find a little sand timer. You'll find this little sample cup, and I want you to notice the ridges at the bottom. I'll explain to you how to use them after. And this is the reason why we say that these should only be used for, we say 10 years and above, but in a classroom setting, I think 12 and above is more appropriate. It's because in here, you'll find these glass ampoules that you need to break to do the test. And you can see here at the tip, there's a little white line, which indicates a weak point in the glass. So we're gonna have to break that off to be able to take our measurement. Let me just grab a bit of water. So another reason why this is a little bit hard is that to get an accurate measurement, you wanna do this quite quickly. So we say the whole test usually should take just 20 seconds to do. So you wanna take a brand new water sample out of the water, pour it in here and break the tip off in 20 seconds. And, you know, sometimes you fumble and it doesn't work out and you can just start again. So, you know, it's not that much of an issue if it takes longer, and it takes a few times to get it right. I remember my first time doing this test, I was a little confused. So if you have the kids do it, always do a demo in front of them first, make sure they understand, and then let them try it out. So my water sample has been lying here for a little while. That means that my dissolved oxygen is going to be much higher than it should be, or that it would be if I took a fresh sample, because it has been absorbing the oxygen from the air, and there's been some mixing in there already. So this is a test that's been best done in the field. You could do it in a classroom setting to show the kids how it works and what it means and everything, but the results themselves won't be super accurate. So I'm going to try to do this quickly. Actually, that's not true. I will do it slowly so that you see what I'm actually doing. But when you go out and do it, I want you to do it really quickly. So I would just pour in here. You don't need that much water. Okay, so I'm going to put my tip in one of the little grooves on the side. So it's like hard to see, but it's on a groove on the side. And then the motion that I want to do to break this is a lever motion. So I'm going to be pushing on the side like this. I'm not going to be going down. It's really a sideways motion, and it doesn't take much force. I'm not a strong person, and this is like very easy to do. So I'm just going to do it right now. And then you're going to hear a little noise, and there's going to be a vacuum effect, and the water is going to be sucked in to the glass ampoule. And then I just take it out, and we're going to invert it a couple times to make sure that it mixes properly. So just keep an eye out for it. Hear the noise, already full of water. I invert it, you see the air bubble, and the chemical is starting to change colors already. It's getting blue, indicating the dissolved oxygen. So you just want to make sure that it goes up and down a couple times. And then I would start my 2-minute timer. If you are doing this demo with younger kids, you can give them the little timer to keep track of. They love keeping track of that and telling you when it's time to check your results. So I'm just going to put that down. And while we wait our 2 minutes, what I can do is I can slowly empty this out, making sure that I keep my little glass tip at the bottom. It usually stays stuck pretty good there, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And we include another little garbage bin for you in here, just like this, so you can put the little piece of glass in there. I have a non-pool because I was just doing another demo. So I just shake it in there. It's gone. And where's my little towel? Anyway, so my cup's gonna be there. My 2 minutes is almost done. So you're gonna wanna take the chart out to be able to do the reading. So you pull from the top. And to do our reading, it's very similar to the test scripts. Always good to have 2 people doing this. Don't wear sunglasses. And we're gonna start from the bottom and slowly bring up like as such our ampoule until we find a blue that matches. And this is one of the ones that you look a little funny doing, because we always recommend to move it around, because light is really going to affect how you see the colors through the glass. So you gotta like play around with it like this, be a little foolish and have some fun until you find the color that matches. So in my case, I am between an 8 and a 10. It's probably a little hard to see on the camera. I'm sure somebody else probably sees something a little bit different, but that's what I'm seeing. So I would write down a 9. And I actually went testing the Lachine Canal just this weekend, and I believe I got a 10 in the Lachine Canal, so even higher than this when I took my sample. So it's pretty normal to get values of 8 and above when you test water, even outside. So this is good for fish. Once you're done with your ampoule, you just put it in your little trash bin. And unfortunately, we don't have a recycling program for these. They are glass and there is a bit of a chemical inside. So you just have to dispose of it in the regular trash when you get back. And then I would just pack up all of my test kit. I will just show you how to do this. So to put this one back, you just want to start with the top and then push down as such, and everything else just fits nicely and compactly back in the test kit. That's it for me. Luke, it's on to you. So I will take on the chat while you tell everyone about the other test kits we have.
All right, thank you, Laura. That was extremely detailed and concise. Thank you. So a few people did ask in chat about smaller test kits for classrooms or for smaller groups of students, and we do have 2 other sizes, one of which is actually new and we're debuting today. I will start with the larger one here. So this is our mini test kit or a compact test kit. It comes in like a smaller container. There's a lot less pieces to this one, and it's great for testing in streams, testing in rivers, or shoreline testing. It doesn't have a Secchi disc, and it doesn't have dissolved oxygen. But inside, everything is laid out in there, easy to access. We have a notepad for taking more information. We have a field guide in the back here, which is a condensed version of the larger one. It doesn't contain the dissolved oxygen and Secchi disc information. Over here, we have the conductivity meter. We still have our selfie reacher stick for taking samples. Our test strips are now in these little clip containers. So if I open this up like that, you can see I shake them around in here. There's usually 10 in here, and we sell these along with a bottle of 50 more as well. And we have a stream thermometer in this one as well. So the focus of this kit is really to give smaller groups of students more access. It's a slight fraction of the cost, and there's much more that you can do with this. So the idea here is this is great for younger students. If we were tailoring the Freshwater Explorer kit that Laura was talking about to maybe 15 to 18-year-olds, this one would be great for elementary school students. The new kit that we're talking about today, this one is launching tonight, I believe, or it launched this morning. This is the tiny kit, and it really, really is just a little bag with just your essentials in it. So if I open this up, I'll just pull everything out so you can see. We have a tiny little field guide right here. And this has your basic information about safety, about why you would be testing water, temperature test strips, air temperature, choosing sample sites. And the idea here is this is really tailored towards young learners. So we're talking, pre-grade 4 even. And the idea here is this kit is great for 1 to 2 students to take charge of themselves. These tools are really accessible for them. So again, test strips come in this little container. We have 5 note pages. So in a pinch, you could have 5 students work on this at once. They're double-sided, so there's 10 pages. There's a sticker, of course, and then the stream thermometer as well. So the tiny kit, I'm doing a webinar with a group of English language learners tomorrow that are in the Ottawa area. They're part of the OCDSB Ottawa School Board, teaching virtually. And I would say that these tiny kits are great for new language learners as well as younger students, because the ease of access to information and the easy to understand wording of the field guide is really great for them. And the tests themselves, you're not getting too complicated with breaking glass or measuring deep down into a lake, because that doesn't often happen on excursions with junior classrooms. It's just much more easy to access, like a stream side, or maybe like a slow moving river or something like that. And we're really pleased to announce that these are available today on the Outdoor Learning Store. Duncan has much more information on that if you're interested. Yeah, and they're really tailored to being portable. Both of these are really tailored to being portable. That's really all I have to talk about today. I'll pass it back to Laura, or if anybody has any burning questions right now.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Luke. I think I'm keeping up with the questions in the chat, but the presentation part is done for us. So maybe we can open up to questions that people have. If you have like bigger questions, that'd be great as well.
I'd just love to step in and say thank you so much. And it's so nice to visually see the things you're using and actually have a demonstration of them. I think that makes a big difference to how sort of this accessible this feels. Kim asked earlier, and there was a message in the chat, but I'm not sure if everyone followed it, so I thought it was quite an important one. She asked about, I think particularly about dissolved oxygen. Do you relate these results to livability for fish and other aquatic life? So and in that field guide, for example, is there a scale that shows you what equates to good or bad, or what the results are there? Like how do people that maybe aren't so much in the know, how can they relate that to their students?
Sure, that's a great question. So in the guide, you will find information as to what's normal. So I'm just showing off the conductivity one right here, but you would have some examples of what's normal for distilled water, which is like what I showed you, melted snow. And then you have something here that says can affect fish reproduction. So you would see that if you had values over 500 microsiemens, that could affect fish reproduction. And then you also have, like as an example, seawater that goes up to 55,000, which is pretty crazy considering what we measured. And we have something similar in for every parameter. So like, let's say for dissolved oxygen, you also have what the results mean, so how to interpret them. And so you would have 0 to 2, not enough oxygen to support most forms of life. 2 to 4, only a few fish can survive. So different examples like that, up to what's good. But these kits are great to gather what we call baseline data. So kind of just like the basics to give you an idea of what's normal in a water body. So if you measure just once, then you can see like, oh, are these values good? Are they bad for certain types of life? But if you want to see if the water is healthy, then we usually suggest to test a little more regularly, so that you can see if there's any drastic changes in any of the parameters that you measure. So that's something else to keep in mind if you ever wanted to do that a little bit more long-term with your classroom.
I saw a question I just wanted to acknowledge. Somebody was asking about if this aligned with curriculum. So our kits are sort of distributed all over Canada. A lot of them are in BC, a lot of them are in Ontario, Quebec, and we're trying to expand it to the East Coast this year. So we have tailored, and in previous years, we've tailored things towards the Ontario curriculum. This year, one of our major goals is to do some mapping to the Quebec curriculum and also the BC curriculum as a starting point. So it does align with upper elementary school water units in the science and life sciences bracket. There's a lot of other like interconnections you could do with taking care of bodies of land, maybe like physical geography even. It's something that we're working towards improving as well.
Somebody earlier, Connie asked, it was more of a practical testing question. She was wondering, in between tests, should she wash the bottle out with soap, or will that cross-contaminate the bottle for next time?
That's a great question. So you can, but you don't have to. Usually what we say is just rinse it in the water 3 times. And we actually say that in case you have washed it with soap to make sure that there is no soap residue at the bottom. So when you put it on your Reorder stick, then you just want to take some water, drop it out, take some water, drop it out 3 times to make sure that that last sample that you take and that you use for your test has some really, like I'm going to say clean water, but just maybe more water that hasn't been contaminated with whatever is in your cup. Thanks for that question.
Fantastic. I had a random question. Is that for some people that might not have access to a sort of safe water body that might be, raging rivers, or it's the springtime and it's the fresh air and the snow melt, what kind of options are there for data collection points? Are we talking puddle? Are we talking tap? How can you make it work?
Right, so that's a great question as well. So there's a lot of little experiments you can do in the classroom. Like I said, one that's fun is to get the kids to bring water from home and to try to get them to understand where that water has come from, because a lot of the times it'll come from different water bodies or different water sources. So there's a lot to talk about there. You can also bring in some snow samples, as long as it's not too dirty so it doesn't kind of give you error messages on the conductivity meter. You can do that as well. And you can just add some little additives. So some things from home that you can easily bring to school and work with the kids. So, just like sometimes we'll change the pH, it'll make it quite basic, adding a little bit of salt for conductivity, a little bit of lemon juice to play around with the pH once again. You can try like throwing in some sand and see if that affects the conductivity, to see how something that dissolves more or less might affect that. So that's something that you can do that's great. But of course, that data that you collect or that you test, unfortunately, because it is just from little science experiments, you can't share it on the data platform. It's more like internal, and it has a lot of education value, but it isn't going to be something that's going to be shared on the platform.
Thanks so much. That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like in my own experience of being out with kids in the water, it's quite a phenomenal environment when they actually start testing it and they can see these things like the water strips, the test kits changing color. It's really tactile for them. So that's pretty amazing. Does anybody else have any burning questions that they'd like to type into the chat or unmute themselves and ask directly?
Somebody asked about color coding and comparing the test strips on the tinier kits. The container itself has the color coding right on the back. So we want to make sure we include that, because that is really important for the junior learner, because if you're dealing with, grade 1 to kindergarten, even the science isn't the main focus here. It's the inquiry and the thinking and the seeing of the changes. So the colors are very important to include there.
I can maybe add this just for fun, little tidbit of information. We have been working for a little while on a machine learning algorithm to help us read these test strips. And this is definitely something that could be included in test kits if you're ever interested. But we have these little reference cards where you just put the test strip on here and you need to use the phone app with it, but you take a photo with your phone app and it gives you back a value for the different parameters. It's not super accurate, but we need lots of photos to train it. So it's really interesting. There's some like little instructions on there as well. So if anyone's interested in that, it's definitely something that can be included in the test kits for fun. So somebody asked in the chat, are we able to reorder the water testing strips in larger quantities? So we do have resupplies for everything that's in the test kits. So we don't want you buying new test kits every time. You can just buy the individual components. So that would mean that you can buy more of these dissolved oxygen packs. So one of these comes with 30 ampoules. And the other thing you need to replace are your test strips, which have 50 in here. And we do recommend calibrating your conductivity meter every year. So you can buy all 3 of those as a restocking pack, or you can just buy the calibration solution, the test strips, and the dissolved oxygen separately, depending on what you use most in your classroom and what's appropriate.
Fantastic. Jennifer asks, and she loves that you mention inquiry or inquiring as part of your learning. And how do you get children interested in that?
Okay, I can speak to that. I have a webinar tomorrow that I'm running, so I've been full of ideas tonight. Laura's done a lot of workshops with students in classrooms that I haven't had a chance to do because of COVID. But my goals going into a classroom of English language learners or teaching virtually to a classroom of English language learners would be to focus on what water means to them. Like, what do you use water for? What do you like about water? Do you have a favorite animal that interacts with water? What is the ecosystem like around this animal, around this body of water? And then we can sort of move into, okay, what do these colors mean for the water? What's normal, what's not normal? So if I'm starting with younger age groups, I'm starting with what they know, what are they familiar with really there.
Yeah, I will add to that also. I did some webinars with really young kids during like pandemic. So it was over Zoom, and you just ask them, like, what's your favorite water body? What's a memory that you have of being close to the water with friends or with your family that meant a lot to you? And all the hands go up. Everyone wants to talk about having fun by the water, and they all have stories to tell. And that's a really great way to get them engaged and to say like, hey, like, we're gonna see if you can tell if that water body that you care about and that you love spending time by, if it is healthy. So that's another way to keep them engaged.
I love talking about watersheds with all age groups, but especially as you get older, and like using Google Earth is an incredible resource to show on a larger scale. And then with the little ones, even kindergartners, I get them to build a watershed out of sand in a box, or to show the shapes of where water flows, so that what you have where you're testing, where has that come from before, and what might it be different downstream? What's between you and where that water empties out in the ocean? So you can get a bit of that sort of social, sort of how we utilize water as well. So I just think the possibilities are endless, and I have one of your kits and I love it. Some shameless plug, but real love for the project. Okay, we do have some options to have some more questions a little bit later. We just wanted to, being aware of time, move on to offering just a couple of prizes before people have to leave, and then we can come back into some more questions at the end. We'll have a little time to run over. So Fahim.
Of course, yeah. All right, so every webinar that we have, we give away a bunch of prizes, and from Take Me Outside, we offer 2 outdoor learning, outdoor journals. So they're essentially nice little journals with weatherproof paper. You can, take them outside and write on it. And yeah, it's rain, snow, all that proof. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the winners from the attendees. And if you are the winner, we will get in touch with you and we can figure out the logistics. So the first winner is Noel Abraham. Yay. And second winner is Joanne Barrett. So congratulations, Noel and Joanne. we are going to get you an outdoor weatherproof, waterproof journal. And I'll hand it over to Jade, and Jade has a prize to give away as well.
I do have a prize, very exciting. We would love to offer you a $50 gift card for the Outdoor Learning Store so that you can, get involved in buying some of these resources potentially. And there is also a discount code for everybody that came in your invitation to this webinar. Have a closer look at that. We're going to offer you 5% off. And we've really worked hard on getting our shipping costs down. So now we've reduced those costs by 25% going forward. So not only is, we're using sustainable and renewable packaging materials and really walking that environmental line, it's now as affordable as we can possibly make it for you. So rather than pick someone randomly, I'm going to do a bit of trivia. I would love, the winner will be the first person to type in the chat one of the 4 measurements that the dipsticks will measure. Oh, it's straight in. Hold on, I'm afraid. Martina McGrath, PH, congratulations, you are the winner. Please send your email in a direct message and we will contact you directly about getting your gift card. So thanks very much. It is almost that time, and we're very cognizant of the fact that a lot of people are spending time in front of screens and had very busy long days. So I'd just like to take this opportunity, to thank everyone who participated and got the answer right. Many of you, well done. But to say thank you to Laura, and thank you to Luke for coming on and sharing this amazing resource and how it's practical and what it can do for teachers and students related to water. So I feel like a little round of applause there is very necessary. At this moment, anybody that needs to go, we totally understand, but we've just got a few minutes. If anybody else has some extra questions or discussion about water testing and what water ranges can do for you while we have the experts here. Feel free to type in the chat. Well, Michaela says, if you find that a body of water is contaminated, who can you contact?
That's a very good question. So first of all, it's hard to know exactly how contaminated or what's happening with the water body just based on our tests, because they are quite basic tests. So we do include in the larger test kit this little pack that allows you to take further samples for a lab. So you might find yourself in that situation and wanting to do that with your class. So you're going to find some gloves to make sure that you don't get yourself dirty. And these little packs called World Pack bags, and they're usually sealed. Mine isn't because I use it for demo, but it's usually sealed. And then you would open it up and just open it like this and be able to take a water sample, write the information on there and seal it up. And you could bring it to a lab if you wanted to. Of course, that's just something that you would have to pay for. Unfortunately, we don't include those services. And it could give you some more information. And on the platform, you can report an issue instead of an observation. So you could write on there that there's a problem with the water and write the description. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's water related. You could just write that there's a lot of trash, and you can do a follow-up and say, who have you contacted? So we do have some groups on there. If there's any in your area, we could help put you in touch with them if they are using our platform, or we can recommend where you can go look. But there's always some groups in every community that you can contact to help you out with, and that will have the tools to investigate this further. But you can definitely reach out or look for groups in your area on the platform to see if anyone can help you out if you find something that's wrong.
absolutely, a stream keepers or a wild site or somebody like that, they have people who are sort of generally actively working on these issues, and would love to hear from you. Kelly asks, how many kits and types would you recommend for a class of 25 students?
Okay, so I see a few questions about numbers and prices and everything, so maybe I can address that as a whole. So the bigger kit that I did the demo for, I actually wouldn't necessarily recommend it for a class of grade 5 or 6. I think that's better suited for high school students. For a class of grade 5 or 6, then the compact kit that Luke talked about that has the connectivity and the test strips, that's more suited. And we usually say that one of these test kits can be used for 3 to 4 students, depending on how much you want it to be hands-on. So just think about that when you order. So 3 to 4, and it could be that you just get some tiny kits to complement, which are a little less expensive if that's something that's more in your budget, and you can just share the connectivity meter, and other students have the test strips and the thermometer. So we definitely want to try to find solutions so that the kids can be as involved as possible. And the larger kit that I presented is good for, we usually say five students, so everyone can try the different tests and you can kind of alternate and do different little stations. But it's super easy with like the test strips to give a test strips to quite a few students, and so you can pass it around and quite a few of the students can be engaged. I will say that we are going to launch an education test kit in the fall only, in September, and it will have it will have 3 bottles of test strips, 3 thermometers, 3 connectivity meters, and 1 dissolved oxygen pack in there. And it will be good for 10 students at a time because of the number of things in there. And the price point is going to be, I believe, just under 600. Don't quote me on that yet, but it's going to be around there between 550 and 600. For up to 10 students. So that's something to keep in mind. It will be on the outdoor learning store once we've launched it. We're just, we're testing it out with different groups before we put it out there for everyone, just to make sure that it's appropriate and all of the writing and the content is available. And it's going to be in a nice little backpack that you can easily carry around with you. So you can keep an eye out for that in September.
And ideally, we would be mapping curriculum for at least Ontario and Quebec and possibly BC in the field guide for that as well.
And to tack on to that question, somebody asked, like, have you thought about making fact pages about why water testing is important, or like a simple lesson plan or something? And, you know, talking of fact pages, we have, and the links in the chat there, we have these pond life guides, which talk about some of the aquatic plants and some of the inhabitants you might find in that water. So that's quite a nice, and you can stick it on one of our beautiful recycled clipboards and use a recycled waterproof notepad to do all the things. But have you got some resources for teachers to have adjacent to this, perhaps?
So we have a lot of online resources right now. And like we said, we have some videos, and in the guides, there is information about why water testing is important and everything. And in that education test kit that I was just talking about, we will have some more kind of sheets that the students can take home and look at individually that will be included in there as well. But there's so many resources on the website. We have some downloadable PowerPoints even with some fun activities that you can do with your class, some little lessons, a pretty complete teacher's guide. So there's a lot of information on there. And I see that Luke's put the link on there, and everything is in French and English, and we're always here if you have any questions or even ideas of things that you want us to work on, because we're always looking to make some more resources for teachers. So don't be afraid to reach out.
I think you've answered that pretty amazingly. And I think that's really, you know, having a structure or something to follow can help sort of facilitate that outdoors. Or if it's inside and people are bringing in their if, you know, field trips aren't a thing at the moment, kids bringing in their samples from their tap water is pretty amazing, or wherever they're getting their water in the house. Any more questions? Because there's just been so many fantastic ones to help us finish this off. Oh, okay, I have a question. It's me, as a sciencey person. it's a lot about repeating results. So would you recommend, going to multiple places along a river or a stream, or doing multiple collections at the same point? How can they make this data really meaningful?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we tell educators is a little bit different than what we tell maybe lake associations and other citizen science or participatory science people that use the test kit. But usually we recommend for most people, if you can get out and test once a month, that's the minimum that we say that's useful. We have a lot of people that go out and test more regularly. If it's part of a class, you could go as often as once a week or every 2 weeks. And since we tell people to test the same day, the same time for a classroom setting, that's pretty nice. If you know that you have every class Thursday at 10, then you can go out and test the water then. But we do have official national testing days, which are the last Sunday of every month at 10 a.m. with alternative testing days ranging from the Friday to the Monday before. So if you can make that fit in your class schedule, then that's great. And it's just to try to make sure that the data is really consistent so that when we have a data set, we can really compare the same time of the day, because as we all know, like temperature and different weather is going to affect the results. So it makes it much easier to compare the data that you have when you're consistent like that. That's a great question. Thank you.
I think that's a really awesome thing. I mean, tying into, the walking curriculum, like with this sort of where we're taking kids out every day, take them out on a walk past the river, take your data sample. And, it's not just water on its own independently. We're connected to the forest. And what happens if you cut the trees down that are overhanging the water, and you lose that shade and the impact that has on the breeding fish? Everything's interconnected. And I feel like, the kits and the lessons and the resources you're offering help really connect students to their wider world. So I think that's beautiful. Okay, anyone else? We've still got a fantastic number of people here, but I'd love to ask you to put any last questions in there. And I should also mention just before we go that all the proceeds from these resources, everything we sell in Canada's outdoor learning store, actually go back into outdoor learning non-profits, right? We are a social enterprise. So all this money goes back into providing these kind of professional development opportunities, into making sure that there's access for youth to outdoor programming, that we engage people with their environment and teachers with resources to do so. So we're coming from a great place of love and respect for our environment. Oh, Connie did ask, do the test strips themselves expire?
Yes, that's a good question. They do. So you just have to check. There's like an expiry date on these, but we make sure when we send them out to send out fresh ones. So they'll definitely last you at least the season and probably well into the next one when you get a pack of these. But that's something to consider when you're ordering your resupplies for the following year. You might want to order them at the beginning of the season and not at the end of the previous season, if that's something you're worried about.
Well, I thought that was really exciting and enlightening. And I do love a hands-on demonstration. So I thank you so much for that, Laura and Luke. And if nobody else has anything they want to share on behalf of Canada's Outdoor Learning Store, myself, Jade, Farheen, and Duncan, thank you so much. And I hope the participants have enjoyed this, for sharing your knowledge and what you do with us. It's greatly helpful.
Thank you. This was great. And just one last word, please don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions. We're always here to help. And thank you to the Outdoor Learning Store for organizing this.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I will be sending an email to our gift card recipient tomorrow, and everyone will be getting an email with a recording and some links to some excellent resources. So I will wish you a very happy rest of your Tuesday evening, and I hope that Wednesday starts fantastically for you. Thank you so much for joining us, and take care. Goodbye.